All right. Uh, let's go into the U.S. Open. So we did it for the Masters and the PGA, and we're going to do it for the U.S. and the Open Championship. And that is a week early. We're going to take a look at the futures odds. I mean, we've actually been doing this the last few weeks, but we will kind of dive in and go over some early trends and players where the odds might change. Now, there are, of course, players playing this week that will be participating next week in the U.S. Open, and that's where the odds will probably change the most. So let's take a look at some of those players. So when you're taking a look at the odds for the U.S. Open next week, I would say Rory for sure. Knowing the betting public, I would say Rory's probably the biggest one, where his odds could change dramatically if he wins this week, because he's 14 to 1 at DraftKings. Now, that does not mean that that's 14 to 1 everywhere, but at DraftKings it's 14 to 1. He's the fourth choice. I believe if he wins this week, I see you losing 2 to 3 points.
Yeah, maybe even 4.
Maybe 4.
Yeah, I could see him getting down to 10. And he's the two-time defending champ at the Canadian Open. Now, it's different courses. But, something about Canada that Rory has liked. He's a massive favorite this week. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I don't like Rory. I still don't think his game is where it needs to be to win a major. But if you do want to bet Rory for the U.S. Open, I would do it now, because I don't think you're going to get much better than 14 to 1. And maybe he gets to 16, but I even doubt that. So I would just bet Rory now if you want him for the U.S. Open.
Yeah, and I get you. But let's also look, not that many people thought, even talking about it last week, Rory was still where we kind of felt he was, or most people. But I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's a great player. And we said this over and over again. It doesn't take long that once these guys get something, that they found it, then they could really dive into that. And all of a sudden, boom. And so I think what's kind of left with Rory is, yes, no question, a little bit more consistency in his game. He's not the type of player that is going to really choke all that much at this point. Mm-hmm. I still think that he does have some choke in him. I'll say that, but not in Canada. So, maybe that's going to be an unfair representation. But the fact is, a win would be huge for him and for his confidence that he won. Yep. And I just think that could be something that could go a long way. Look, if he wins and he wins ugly, that's different. If we take a look at the stats next week, and the stats really don't tell you that he had this really great week, like maybe it might appear that, well, we'll talk about it. But if the stats say, you know what, I think it's changed. I think he's got the game now, and we know how well he's played at the U.S. Open over the last 4 years, then maybe we would feel a little bit different next week. So the hard part, though, is that we won't really like him if those odds do come down to like 10 or 9 to 1. We've said that over and over again. But if he stays somehow magically at 14 to 1, which we don't think would be the case, then and he wins, then I might feel a little bit different.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get to Rory on my card. I don't think he's a bad bet at that number right now. As you alluded to, he has 4 straight top 9 finishes at the U.S. Open at this point. And you look at his last 2 starts, so 7th at the PGA and 7th at Memorial. The PGA, the irons were awesome. At Memorial, the driver, the off the tee game was awesome. He just kind of needs to, marry those two together. So he's getting closer, it looks like. And obviously these U.S. Open courses tend to set up well for his game.
All right. Now, overall, taking a look early, and let's now we mentioned Scheffler 7 to 1. So if we're talking about the top contenders, and look, you mentioned Hovland. So Hovland, now you said what? You were able to get Hovland at your sports book at 25?
25 to 1 that was on Saturday.
Oh, on Saturday. Down. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I already have Hovland. Yeah, I already have Hovland on a parlay that came through for me, but that's for the Open Championship. But I was thinking along the lines of what you were saying about the U.S. Open. Look, I'm still looking at as I still believe it more because his resume is better at the Open Championship than the U.S. Open, and
Mhm.
like you said, winning
Yep.
back to back, not so easy. Even though his confidence now is at an all time high. Um, I see what you're saying, but now it's 18. It's a little bit of a difference if you haven't
Yep.
taken it yet, uh, but I have no problem with anybody who wants to go with Victor Hovland even at 18-1.
Either do I. I think right now, at a short time span, maybe the last month or two, Hovland's the third best player in golf right now behind Scheffler and Rahm. So I don't think 18's bad. He's a positive putter on POA. He's had some good performances on the West Coast in the past. He did miss the cut at the U.S. Open last year, but he went 13th and 12th in his first two appearances at the U.S. Open. So now Hovland's guy, I think, as the shine kind of wears off last week's win a little bit, I think you could still get him at a 20, maybe a 22 next week. So he's not a guy I think you need to like rush to bet at 18-1. But I'm a dude. I wouldn't have any qualms with someone betting Hovland at 18-1. Again, I think he's the third best player in golf right now.
Actually, on Bovada, he's down to 16-1. So let's
Yep.
see. I'll just do a quick little parlay here as an example. So let's say you like Rory this week, and you're gonna take Hovland next week. So let's do a parlay with Rory and Hovland, and I'll put $2 down, and you can make a little bit over $200.
Not bad.
So again, if you think Rory's going to win this week and you like Hovland next week, just do that. Heck, why would I want to put 10 or 25 bucks on McIlroy when I can do that if you really like Hovland next week?
Yep.
So
I'm just looking to here. If you're listening and looking to bet Hovland, you have access to multiple sports books. He's 19-1 if you have FanDuel.
The only thing is
I mean,
keep an eye on. I don't know. Maybe FanDuel does it. I just don't know how many do parlays.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about straight up
Straight
for
up, yeah.
Hovland. I'm not. I think you can do parlays on FanDuel, but
So it's 19-1 there. Okay.
Yep. Always shop around if you have access to these books, because you'll definitely find differences. Sometimes big differences.
All right. So let's see. Also for next week, now Schauffele, 16-1 at this point. That's not going to change. It's probably going to stay 16-1.
Yeah.
So no rush there. But Schauffele, I wonder, what do you think about? Because Schauffele, do you still put him in the Cantlay boat as far as no matter how good he looks statistically speaking at the U.S. Open over his career, that you're not ready yet, especially at 16-1?
Yeah, 16 is just too short for me. I mean, if he gets to 22 or 25 next week, I'd be tempted, because he is a West Coast guy. POA is his best putting surface.
Yes.
He's had plenty of success in the U.S. Open. I mean, geez, his U.S. Open record: 5th, 6th, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 14th. I mean,
it's amazing.
He's done everything but win the thing.
Yeah.
But 16. I mean, I would rather bet Hovland at 18 than Xander at 16.
Well, again, another situation where same thing. If you like McIlroy this week and you would like Schauffele, but not at 16, do a parlay. You can even do a $1 parlay and make $100 on Schauffele. So do it that way. All right, let's see. Your boy Homa, 20-1, and I know this is going to be your pick, and everybody's known it here on this program for the past couple of months. So we know what his record is in majors, especially in the U.S. Open. It's all about it being West Coast, L.A.
Yep.
It's different. He hasn't had the opportunity, or really has he? Well, look, he's been a completely different player in the last year or two. So even if he's played a major like 3 years ago on the West Coast, I'm not going to compare that, because he just wasn't the same guy anyway.
Yeah, I like Homa next week, and I'm sure I'll stick with him as a one and done pick, but I don't think I'd bet him at 20-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, I think I have him at 35.
Yeah, that was
I
better.
think he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
And
surprised he's
we'll see.
20
He
to
could.
1?
I think he's 20 to 1 because the books have taken a lot of money on him to win this over the past 2 or 3 months. So they're
That's
like,
not a
no,
good
we're
sign, to
going
tell
to
you the
put him.
truth. I don't like that at all.
Well, they're putting him at 20 to 1 so they don't take, they don't want
Oh, of
to
course.
have
Yeah.
more exposure to him. So
I
they're
just
basically
don't like
telling you not
the
to bet
fact
him.
that a lot of people like him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. But again, getting him at 40 to 1
Yeah.
is a lot different than getting him at 20 to 1.
And look, this is what we're definitely going to do a lot more of starting next year, starting next season. So you want to be with us from the get-go. We'll be taking a look at all these futures for the majors early on in the season. Maybe even do, because we didn't do it this year, maybe we'll do like a major futures show when the season begins. And maybe even every week starting next year, we could have like a short segment where we take a look at major futures, players to keep an eye on. Because, what would you say are your best major futures you've had this year?
Brooks Koepka 40 to 1 at the PGA was pretty nice. I honestly don't bet a ton of futures. It's just when I see a number that stands out, it's just like it's a bad number.
I get it.
Because the thing is with these majors, a lot of times they're on courses that we're not super familiar with. Outside of Augusta, obviously, these are courses we only see once every 5 or 10 years. So like I don't usually try to fire a ton until I feel comfortable with what the course is and how it's going to play. But when I see something like Brooks, when I bet him, it was either the Thursday or Friday at the Masters, and he just was playing super well, and that's Brooks Koepka 40 to 1. So I just decided to hit that. But that's kind of just stay on it. Look at those futures numbers every so often, and you'll find some gems every once in a while.
What about Morikawa? Because Morikawa does have back-to-back top fives. Yeah. Nobody's going to probably. I think he's going to go fly under the radar because he hasn't played all that well. But we know he's more than capable, and he's very good on POA, and he has a lot of trends going for him. So look, Brooks Koepka and Morikawa have the same type of MO, and maybe Morikawa will pull a Koepka.
Yeah, so I still don't think so. I mean, I guess the positive of Morikawa is, like you said, he's a California guy. He won the PGA Championship in California. That's
a good one.
He's a good POA putter. He's a positive POA putter. He's negative on bent and Bermuda, so that's good. I still don't think his game is like A+ Morikawa game. Plus, he withdrew on Sunday at the Memorial with back spasms.
Yeah, that's not good.
So yeah, he said he thinks he'll be fine for the U.S. Open, but like I would not bet him now.
I don't like 20 to 1.
I think. Yeah, I think you'll get a 25 on Morikawa if
definitely
you want
wait on him
next
Absolutely.
Week. Yeah. Yep.
Wait, don't touch him. Cantlay, I wouldn't touch either at 16 to 1. I feel better if I'm going to take one of those guys. I'm taking Schauffele over Cantlay because he has a much better resume. Those are two guys who have that common issue around majors. Closing the deal, but Schauffele's been a lot better resume-wise in the majors than Cantlay.
What's Cantlay's U.S. Open record? I can pull it up right here. I
top 25.
Really remember him,
but his last two have been
better than a 14.
His last two have actually been decent.
Decent, yeah, but I don't. It was 14th and 15th. I don't remember him like really being in the mix in either of those.
No. Nope. Let's see. And now we get to and this other group. This is where you get more value. And that is Jordan Spieth. Spieth's got a lot of trends working for him, but the one that's not working for him is he doesn't fare too well on POA. So that's a bad thing.
Yep.
I would.
Yeah, he's still a positive POA putter. It's just not his best surface.
I would probably go with Cam Smith over Spieth in this group here because. Keep in mind, Cam Smith, when he won the Open Championship, did not have a top 15 in the Open Championship prior to winning. So when you take a look at Cam Smith's U.S. Open resume, he only has one top 30. That was a fourth in 2015. So at least he had a better result at the U.S. Open. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And he did have a pretty solid PGA, finishing ninth. So yeah, I think he's interesting.
Yeah, well, Spieth and Smith are the two guys I wanted to talk about because we'll get more into the course next week. But from the videos I've watched, like the flyovers and some just narration about the course, it looks wider off the tee, wider fairways than what we usually see at the U.S. Open. Now, I'm sure the rough is still going to be super long, so if you do miss the fairway, it's going to be a problem. But that's always the biggest concern for me with both Spieth and Cam Smith is they tend to get wild off the tee, and usually at the U.S. Open, that's going to kill you. I think they might be able to get away with it a bit more on this course. So Spieth's the one I like among the two. Cam Smith is just I just don't these live guys, and I know Brooks won in spite of it. But I just I don't know exactly where their games are. Spieth continues to play well. He had that wrist thing.
No,
but,
Cam Smith's still playing well. He's definitely playing the best live tour golf that he's played all season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I do think he's interesting at this course. I usually wouldn't bet Cam Smith at a U.S. Open. Yeah. But just from what I've seen, I think this course might work for him.
Yeah, because actually I asked Jan about that last week, and she did feel that Cam, because I was surprised too, that she thought that Cam would actually. It's funny. So she thought that, right? And I was like, all right, cool. Mm-hmm. That maybe I'll consider him. So sure enough, I went ahead and I one of the drivers I liked in NASCAR yesterday, who won, Kyle Busch. I liked him, but it was like, I don't want to put a whole lot of money on him. So I did. So I went ahead and I put a little bit on him to win. And then all right, I'll put whatever. I think I put $1 or $2 on him with Cam Smith in a parlay. So I have actually Cam Smith. What do I have him at? I already have him $500 if Cam Smith wins because of that. So I only did that because Jan convinced me that even though he doesn't have a good history, that she felt that Cam Smith, especially because of his overall game, not necessarily, we know he can get wayward on the tee, but she feels, I guess, at this golf course that he'll, that he could still, make it work. But we'll talk more about that with her next week. All right, so those are, and as far as and Jason Day could be somebody to keep an eye on. He's got the win, so that's good. He has a good U.S. Open resume. I know a lot of that is earlier in his career, but he's back to playing better golf. And then also the one that I really, really am starting. I mentioned this to you a couple of times early in the season when we were going over players and matchups, and I mentioned Hideki Matsuyama at the U.S. Open. And now that he's finally starting to show glimpses, I really am starting to think more and more that, you know what? I kind of forgot about that because I think Matsuyama's the trends are all now again, just like Spieth, Poa, not all that great for Hideki Matsuyama. Definitely worse on Poa than Spieth is. That's what I would be the most concerned with. But he has an underrated U.S. Open resume, and he's coming in again, playing a little bit better than he played earlier in the season, and you're getting 35-1. So
yeah, 35-1 is nice. I'm not sure what happened to him over the weekend last week, but I mean the overall numbers were still decent. The irons have been great for a while. The off the tee stuff's kind of been up and down, but again, you can kind of get away with more of that at this course, I think, from what I've seen. And like you said, he's not a good Poa putter, but it's his best surface. And he's horrible on Bermuda. He's not great on bent. He's pretty much a neutral putter on Poa. So yeah, it's a good spot for him. 35-1's fine. It's not a number I'd be like jumping at to hit right now. Sure. I think you might get a 40 or 45 next week. But yeah, I think Hideki does set up pretty nice.
And then long shots, the 4 that I have circled that you could decide whether or not you think these odds are going to come down. I have Rose and Fleetwood at 60, Scott at 65, and McCarthy at 150.
Yeah, well, I guess first for me, Sung Jae at 40. Now he's not playing well over the last few starts now. Started at the PGA, right? Yeah, PGA
Yeah.
miscut 40 or
He went on
miscut
that
at the
trip
Charles
too.
Schwab, and yeah, he hasn't been the same since he came back from Korea. But I still just think 41's too big for Sung Jae, so I think that's worth considering. And then Scott's the other guy I wanted to bring up because he's an excellent POA putter.
Yes.
He's like top 10 in POA putting, and he's
Yes.
not a great putter on the other surfaces. So you want to play Scott on POA. He's had a nice season. I mean, he came ninth last week.
Yep.
Kind of sneakily, didn't even realize that. 29th at the PGA, two straight top eights prior to that. So he's on a really nice run. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good value at 65.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. The putter, the surface. Matter of fact, 6 top 15s in his last 9 U.S. Opens. So he's actually played a lot better later in his career at the U.S. Open. So yeah, I really like that one. And you know what? I still think because you like Rose, you've actually been picking him lately, and
Yep.
we talked about it earlier in the year, and he got the win. But we talked about it at the Masters, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think because of his resume, he's definitely been a better U.S. Open player than an Open Championship player. I still think at this point in his career he could win either, but I think this is his better shot at winning the U.S. Open. So,
Yep. And Bryson's still 60 to
he
1.
still is.
I bet him at that number right after the PGA. I still think he's worth a shot at 60.
All right. And anybody that's really up there, like McCarthy, anyone that's like a real big number that you think
No,
might?
not as of now. Not as of now. That's probably something where again, if I dig more into the course and I see something that might fit the course, I might hit a bomb or two, but nothing sticks out to me right now.
Let's see. Notable names. Let's see. Mickelson. Harris English went on that run back-to-back years.
I mean, I'll probably end up betting Gary Woodland at 100 to 1 just
Gary
because.
Woodland. Another U.S. Open. 2 U.S. Open wins for Gary Woodland. Boy, that would just be great. Gary Woodland
It would
won
be
2 U.S. Opens. All right, so there you go. We're going to talk more about the U.S. Open, a whole bunch about the U.S. Open. Matter of fact, if all goes well, we might even be able to do the show live. I see no reason why we can't, but we'll just make sure that it ties in okay with Jan, because she'll come on for a segment. I'm not going to keep her on. Well, we'll keep her on maybe for more than a segment if we can get the show done earlier in the day on Monday. So that's a possibility too. So either way, we're going to get a lot of stats in, your usual stats, historical trends, as much as we can do to give you guys. And by the way, since we've talked about this earlier, you got a whole week now. If you guys out there, if you have anything that you want us to talk about regarding any questions that you have regarding specific trends or anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like us to talk about regarding the U.S. Open, kind of fill in the gaps thing, just let us know. And we'll definitely bring it up on next week's show. Just put it in the comments section, of course, on this video. So, and if you haven't already subscribed, then make sure you do that. Definitely like the video. That's real important for us. Of course, if you like what you see and hear, and share it with your friends too.